insignificant.
Okay, let's play some damn shit.
How far away are the stars? Also
Street
comprehend
war.
with crystal clarity why no rescuer has arrived for us,
Snap
and why
that
no
slut
rescuer
from
ever.
China.
Let us peel away the layers.
We needed to get our acts together. That's how I started it.
You suck, right. Cock.
I lost my job because I was drinking so much that I wasn't coming to work. I lost the house I was renting because I couldn't afford to pay rent.
That's fucked
I
up.
ended up moving back in with my mother and her current husband, and they're both addicts. And when I lost my job from drinking, I was like, I've got to stop. Like, I can't do this anymore because it's making everything worse. And so I'm living with them. They're drinking, they're smoking weed, they're popping pills, and I'm trying to get this girl into rehab. She's asked for my help to do that. So I'm trying to get a hold of $400 to get her into rehab. I'm trying to get myself sober. I'm trying to get a new job. I'm trying to sell all the stuff that's sitting in the front room of my mom's house so that it's not sitting there and bothering her, and so that I can get some cash flow and get things moving again. I get a job as a temp in a different factory. I reach out to someone I used to be related to through marriage. And
God damn it.
That's a tangent. But from my point of view, this person owed me money. And I think that's still probably justifiable, but we won't go into that story. He agrees to pay me $200.
God damn it.
That's the other half I need to get her in rehab. So I come to court with that money.
Spit.
They do whatever paperwork. They get her into this Christian rehabilitation program in Birmingham. So she goes that way. I continue to talk to this guy that gave me the money, and he wants to try and disciple me. Those are his words. And I'm open to it because, like, I need all the help I can get right now. And like I said, I believe that God's disciplining me. So, like, from my point of view, that's the answer. Is I need to reestablish my relationship with God. I need to dig in, try harder, do better, study longer, pray more, all that. And he tells me, because I call him one day and I'm like, man, it sucks living here because they're constantly high and I'm sober and I feel like I'm on fire. Like, I feel like I'm itching. Like, I'm trying not to.
Now fuck up and take that night with your ass. I can Donkey Kong the fuck out of you.
He pauses and he's like, listen. How about you come and stay with me and my wife? And he had 2 small kids at the time. I'll disciple you. I'll try and help you get back on your feet. I'll help you reestablish your relationship with Christ. And the only condition is you need to quit your job because this was another swing shift being at a factory. And come work for me.
Fucking factory. Fuck.
At the time, I was like, okay, that'll work.
What a crock.
Looking back on that last bit, it was like,
suck my motherfucking dick.
I can't think of a word, but that seems a little manipulative now, looking back, and I'll get more into that. But he had a small business construction company at the time, and it was just him, his business partner,
blue collar working
and
water.
then one other guy, and so now me. I think he needed help. Personally, so I think there was definitely some selfish motive going on there. But I do think that in his mind he was thinking that I'm going to help Chris out. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do as a man of God. I'm going to train him up to be a better man. And so I lived with him for about a month. This is now
Suck my fucking cock.
March of that same year.
Suck my
So it's a couple months after me almost killing myself.
Suck my cock.
And I'm still talking to this girl.
Cock. Suck
every
my
chance I get.
cock.
And she has to call me because she's in jail.
Suck my
Right?
motherfucking cock.
So most of the time when I see her
Suck my
calling, I
cock.
pick up the phone and I talk to her. And I'm trying to encourage her.
Suck my motherfucking cock.
It wasn't until
Suck my cock.
the end of March or April that she actually got into this rehabilitation program.
Bitch, you suck my
But
cock.
while
Suck
I'm
my
there
black cock. You suck my cock.
with this guy, we do
Suck
some
my
Bible
cock.
studies. He takes me to his church. He's trying to get me ingrained in like their Sunday school and their Wednesday night Bible study. And this is only a few weeks, though, so it doesn't
Bitch,
last
you
very long.
suck my goddamn dick.
And he
You suck
confronts
my
me one
goddamn
day,
dick, bitch.
one
You suck
evening,
my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn
and
dick. You suck my
he
dick,
says to me,
bitch. You suck my
Listen,
goddamn
we gotta
dick,
talk.
bitch. You suck my goddamn dick,
and
bitch.
he's like,
You
why
suck my
are you
goddamn
still
dick.
talking to this girl? Because,
You
and
suck
this is the
my
funny
goddamn
thing, is
dick,
I was
bitch.
so
You suck my
frustrated at the time that he
bitch.
was
You suck my
questioning me.
goddamn
I
dick,
see
bitch.
now,
You
despite
suck my goddamn dick. You
some
suck
of
my
his
goddamn
unhealthy
dick,
beliefs,
bitch.
that
You
he
suck
could see
goddamn
my
dick,
relationship
bitch. You suck my
situation
goddamn
more clearly than I
bitch.
could.
You suck my
So he
goddamn
knew
dick.
that, like, this was
You
not
suck
a
my
good fit,
goddamn
and that
dick,
we
bitch.
needed
You
to
suck
just
my
end
goddamn
it.
dick, bitch. You
But
suck
his
my
way of doing
goddamn
that
dick,
wasn't
bitch.
the
You
most
suck my goddamn
understanding.
dick. You suck
So he
my
sat me
goddamn
down.
dick,
He's like,
bitch.
I just don't
You suck
understand.
my goddamn dick,
He's like, is
bitch.
the pussy just that good, Chris? And I was kind of shocked. His wife's sitting there, and she yells his name. She's like, you know, why are you saying that? And
You
I
suck my
understand
goddamn
now,
dick, bitch.
but I was very taken aback. And he said, listen, you need to stop talking to her. And this is, he's like, this is the way I see it.
Suck
You
my
stay with us
goddamn cock.
for another 6 months to a year.
Suck my cock.
You don't talk to her at all during that time. Or I can call this relative I have and give him hope retreat.
And you
And
can
we can
keep
get
your
you
ass.
put into the discipleship training program down there.
Suck my cock.
And this is where it's like,
Suck my
I traded the shovel for a backhoe, and I'm just digging myself into a pit without realizing it.
Hold on. So you have a choice. You're such a knucklehead. Obviously, you have a choice between not talking to this girl and just being able to continue living where you're at and just take this guy's advice because he's letting you live with him, right?
Suck.
Or you go to a disciple thing and you chose that instead of staying with this guy.
You suck dick.
He had been talking it up over the month that I had lived with him
Hamming it up.
because he struggled with addiction. And he had relapsed. A year or two before this,
I see a
he
dick
went
in
there
your
for a
future.
few
I
months
see a
and came
dick.
back, and he kept talking about
I see a dick in your future. I see a dick.
with Christ, and that
I
he was on
see a
fire,
dick
he
in
was
your future.
trying to
I
go to war
see a
with the
dick.
devil, and
I see a
like, he would
dick.
use a
God,
lot of verbiage like this, like he was a crusader. And at the time, I was
I
inspired
see
by
a
that.
dick
I was
in your
like, you know,
future. I
that
see a
actually sounds
dick.
really cool.
Dick.
And
Dick. Suck my.
So you went though.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Tell me.
Fucking.
I felt convicted. I felt like
Of course.
maybe this is what God is asking of me. It's like to
You're right.
really lay it out on the line and trust Him and dive in. Right.
Well, that's kind of how our minds work, right? We're living it out, and we're trying to look for signs that make sense. Here's another sign, right? The girl enters your life. Okay, the girl exits your life. Or
Dick.
she's in jail. That's part of the sign. This guy bringing in. That's part of the sign. Well, this guy says this.
Stupid!
Doing that. So you're
Because that
going.
was
You go
stupid.
to practically like a boot camp for Jesus.
Oh!
I can already.
Stupid.
This has got to be hell. So
The
I
stupid
want to
machine.
go on this experience in this boot camp. I can't imagine
What a
this was not a hellhole that you're like, damn, dude. You really sold me on like one of the worst places to go to. Tell me. I want to know though. So what happens?
Thankfully, I can laugh now, but no, absolutely, I had that experience. So this is in Lacombe,
He was a good sport, but he was a poor player.
6 hour drive.
He was a dumbass.
I think like 5 to 6 hour drive It's on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain. It's a rural area.
Right.
This is a former boys' summer camp. I think it was K-Bar B.
I want
what
a
it was
piece.
called. But this ministry, the New Orleans Mission, bought this place. And
But we're gonna eat one tomorrow.
so now we're gonna
because
get
I don't want to get
You're
fat.
gonna hear me say like the word allegedly a few times and things like that because they're partnered with the court systems down there, and I don't have the money to defend myself in a lawsuit.
This is boring.
Okay.
This is a place
This is
where
boring.
they have a
This is
men's
boring.
discipleship training program and a women's discipleship training program. The men's is at Giving Hope Retreat, and now they've expanded their operation. There's at least one more campus. I'm not sure what that's called. I haven't done a deep dive into
Suck
that
my
because I
motherfucking dick.
am trying to just distance myself as much as possible
Suck my dick, bitch.
from that place. But
You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick.
the women's campus is
Suck my dick.
like I want to say about a 40-minute drive from the men's. It's even further from the New Orleans Mission, and they are. So, like I said, they call it a discipleship training program.
That whore.
A religious rehabilitation program, a drug rehabilitation program, or
Fucking.
a program for
You suck.
homeless people to get off the streets of New Orleans and to try and get their lives back together. So there were some people that were court sentenced to be there, Eric, and instead of a secular rehabilitation program where people that had committed drug crimes,
That happens a lot, but as you know, there's going to be a ton of the courts are even dependent on whatever sources they have, and they're not sending them to like high-priced, secular, rehabilitation centers and whatnot programs. They're looking for like Christian camps that are organized with the government to help people get clean and stuff. And it's like, they're organized with 12-step camps even, for example. And I've been to 12-step, as you know, we've probably both been in and out of ENA, all that. Even then, you go to the meeting, you go up to the person who's running it, chairing it, hey, can you sign my slip? Cool, I was here at the meeting today. They're forced to kind of go as part of the court thing. This is obviously a little more severe than just going to 12-step. You have to mandatorily go. And not the greatest people in the world are appearing in these camps either because, a lot of them have all sorts of other problems they need help with. And go in there, Jesus isn't going to cure that, I imagine.
I don't
But
give a
okay,
shit.
let's hear about the camp. Let's hear what happens.
Not that
down
type of help.
And I'll back up just briefly. We had a going away party.
They can suck my motherfucking goddamn cock.
I still don't have the closest relationship with my father. We're slowly working on that, but just to remind everyone, my mom had custody of me for most of my childhood. So my dad wanted to be there. He had his own struggles he was dealing with, and he didn't have custody. So
Suck my dick, bitch.
he comes to this
Suck my
going away party,
Suck my dick.
and he stops at one point. He stops everyone, and kind of makes a scene that I wish I had took more seriously at the time. And he stops.
This is boring. This is boring. This is boring.
Suddenly going to this place, right? And at the time, I thought, like, oh, he's just kind of ignorant. He doesn't understand that, like, this is where God's sending me. So anyway, we talk about it, and he just accepts that's my decision. He doesn't agree with it, but he's like, I'll support you.
Man, this is boring as fuck. You suck my motherfucking goddamn dick, you goddamn son of a goddamn bitch. You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my...
2 billion people call the Bible the perfect, inerrant Word of God. And that Bible says God,
Bitch, you suck.
personally, with his own voice on a mountain, dictated the exact blueprints for one object. Every measurement, every material, the gold plating, the angels on top, down to the cubit. Like an architect sliding drawings across a table to a contractor and saying, build exactly
Bitch, you
this.
suck my dick.
And that object, the Ark of the Covenant, became the most sacred thing any religion has ever possessed. The thing in the center of the room so holy that one human being could enter it once a year. And if he got the ritual wrong, he just dropped dead right there on the floor
Drop dead,
in
bitch.
front of God. And I need you to hear this, because this is the thing that broke it open for me. That object, the one God supposedly designed himself, the Bible describes it twice. 2 different books. And the 2 descriptions don't match. They're not even in the same universe. One version, golden throne, angels on top, built by a master craftsman God, handpicked for the job. The other, same Bible, same God, supposedly same story. Moses just throws together a wooden box with his bare hands. No gold, no angels,
Kiss that bitch and goodbye.
wood, stone tablets, done.
Stupid.
And I sat with that for,
This stupid
honestly,
machine
it was a while before I could even say it out loud.
Stupid!
Because once you see it, the phrase, the Word of God, just, it lands differently after that. It does. There's no going back to the way it sounded before. 7 lies. 7 things you were taught about the Ark of the Covenant that are not true. That collapse the second you put 2 pages of the same Bible on the same table. And the evidence? I really need you to get this. The evidence has been sitting in your own copy this entire time. In the book on your shelf.
China!
In the app on your phone.
You
Right
Chinese
there.
Oriental. You
Wide
Chinese
open.
Oriental.
Just waiting for
cross-
somebody to turn the damn page.
You
So let's open them
Oriental.
both.
You Oriental.
Because that's the
cross-
one thing nobody at the front of the
Chinese
room ever
Oriental.
did for you.
Chinese
Here's lie
Oriental
number
cross-
1.
Chinese Oriental.
And it's the big one,
prostitute.
so stay with me. You were taught that God designed one
You
ark,
Oriental
one set of blueprints,
Oriental prostitute.
one sacred object. That's not what the Bible
You
says.
Japanese prostitute.
Let's start with the version you already know, the one they taught you. Exodus 25. God is on the mountain with Moses. And what comes out of God's mouth isn't some loose suggestion like, build me something nice. It's a spec sheet. I mean, it reads genuinely like an engineering document somebody would submit to a general contractor. Verse 10. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, a cubit and a half wide, a cubit and a half high, roughly 4 feet by 2.5 by 2.5. Then verse 11. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Inside and out. God wants the inside of the box, the part nobody is ever going to see, plated in gold. Then the mercy seat, verse 17. A solid slab of pure gold for the lid. Then the cherubim, verse 18. 2 of them, hammered gold, wings spread, facing each other across the mercy seat, gold rings on the corners, gold-plated wooden poles for carrying, and then verse 22. This is the whole point of the thing. There, above the cover between the 2 cherubim, I will meet with you. God is designing his own throne room. Out loud, personally, every detail down to the molding around the edge. And who builds it? Not Moses. God picks a craftsman named Bezalel, Exodus 31. Fills him with, quote, the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills. Full divine appointment. God selects the builder by name. Moses doesn't touch the construction. Moses carries the message. Bezalel does the work. That's the ark you grew up with. The golden chest, the wings, the thing from the movie, from the flannel board, from whatever painting your grandparents had hanging in the hallway next to the bathroom. Version 1. Now flip to Deuteronomy 10. Same Bible, supposedly same Moses, same God. And Moses is talking. Verse 1. At that time the Lord said to me, Chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and come up to me on the mountain. Also, make an ark of wood. An ark of wood? Just make a box out of wood. That's it. That's what God says. Verse 3. So I made the ark out of acacia wood, and chiseled out 2 stone tablets like the first ones. And I went up on the mountain with the 2 tablets in my hand. I made the ark. Moses himself, with his hands, a wooden box. Tablets went in, and that's all you get. That's the whole description. No gold, no cherubim, no mercy seat, no Bezalel, no rings, no poles, no molding, no divine craftsmanship, no nothing. A man and a box and 2 rocks. I want you to sit with that for a second. Because the question this raises isn't some deep theological brain teaser you need a seminary degree to untangle. A 10-year-old could ask it. Did God design a gold throne with sculpted angel statues? Or did God say, make a wooden box? Because a wooden box is not a gold-plated throne with angels on the lid. Those are different objects. Physically different. Made by different people. Described differently. And they're both sitting in the same Bible that 2 billion people call the perfect, inerrant, divinely inspired Word of God. Now, I know the apologetic move. I've read every flavor of it. Moses made a quick temporary box on the mountain just to hold the tablets, and then later Bezalel built the real, permanent gold one. Alright, sounds reasonable for about 5 seconds. Until you read Deuteronomy 10:5. Where Moses says, and I'm quoting here, that he put the tablets in the ark he made, and there they are, as the Lord commanded me. There they are, present tense, still in the wooden box, at the end of Moses' life. He's addressing the Israelites, wrapping things up, and he says the tablets are in the box he built, the wooden one. He doesn't mention a gold upgrade, doesn't mention Bezalel, doesn't breathe a word about cherubim. As far as the author of Deuteronomy is concerned, the wooden box Moses built with his own hands is the ark. That's it, full stop. There's no sequel. There's no upgrade package. So you've got a choice. Either God designed 2 completely different objects and somehow forgot to mention the other one in each account. Or, and this is where we're going, 2 different people in 2 different centuries, with 2 completely different ideas of what this thing was supposed to be, wrote 2 different descriptions, and somebody came along much later and stitched them both into the same book, without telling you they didn't agree. You were taught there was one ark. There isn't. That's the first lie. The second one is smaller, but honestly, it might bother you more. Because you were also taught what was inside the ark. And the Bible can't get that straight either. So what's actually in the box? 1 Kings 8:9 tells you directly. Solomon has just finished building the temple, the most important structure in the history of Israel. He's moving the ark into the Holy of Holies, the most significant moment, the most significant room, the most significant object. And the author pauses to inventory what's inside. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had placed in it at Horeb. Nothing except the tablets. This author is specific. He uses the word nothing. He uses the word except. There's no wiggle room in that sentence. Tablets. That's it. The author of 1 Kings, narrating arguably the single most important religious event his civilization ever experienced, says the box has 2 stone tablets inside it and nothing else. Now here's where it gets strange. Open Hebrews 9:4. Same ark, supposedly. This ark contained the gold jar of manna, Aaron's staff that had budded, and the stone tablets of the covenant. 3 items, not one. The tablets, sure, but also a golden jar of manna and Aaron's rod that miraculously sprouted. 3 things inside a box that 1 Kings says had one thing. And the author of 1 Kings didn't hedge. He didn't write, I think it was mainly the tablets. He said, "Nothing except." He was emphatic, categorical. Then about 1,000 years later, the author of Hebrews casually adds 2 more objects to the inventory, like they've always been there. Same box, same religion, 2 inventories. They flat out contradict each other. And if this is the Word of God, if God had a hand in both passages, then God doesn't remember what He put inside His own box. You were taught what was in the ark. Turns out the Bible can't agree on the answer. That's lie number 2. And those first 2, the outside doesn't match, the inside doesn't match. Look, I get it. If you really want to hold on, you can file them under different time periods, things got fuzzy, details shifted over the centuries. It's not comfortable, but it's survivable. You can lose a few specs and still keep the big picture more or less intact. What comes next, you can't file. This one isn't about 2 books written 1,000 years apart having different details. This is one God contradicting Himself in the same book, 5 chapters apart. And the contradiction is so direct, so plain, so completely impossible to miss once somebody shows it to you, that the fact nobody ever did tells you something about every person who was ever supposed to be teaching you this material. Lie number 3. And this is the one that should genuinely keep you up tonight. You remember the 10 Commandments, right? Exodus 20. Most famous moral code in human history. Verse 4. Commandment number 2. God speaking directly. You shall not make for yourself a graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Any likeness of anything in heaven above. That's not narrow language. That's not try to avoid the obvious stuff. It's a blanket prohibition. The broadest possible scope God could have chosen. No carved image, no likeness of anything in heaven, on earth, under the water. Total, comprehensive, done. 5 chapters later, same book, same God, still talking. Exodus 25:18. God is dictating the ark specifications to Moses. And He says, "Make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold at the ends of the cover." Cherubim, heavenly beings. In the Hebrew Bible, cherubim guard the entrance to Eden after the fall. They show up in Ezekiel's visions of the divine throne room, heaven. They are explicitly, by every definition available, beings that exist in heaven above. And God says, sculpt 2 of them out of gold and bolt them to my box. I need to say that again because it has to land. God says, do not make any image of anything in heaven. 5 chapters later, God says, make 2 gold images of heavenly beings and attach them to the lid of my most sacred object. Same book, same mouth. The counter-argument, and I know this one cold because I heard it 100 times growing up, goes like this. The second commandment is about images for worship. God isn't telling them to worship the cherubim. He's telling them to build components of the ark. Different context, different purpose. There's no actual contradiction. So let's slow down and look at what the text actually says. Verse 4. You shall not make for yourself a graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above. Verse 5. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. 2 clauses. 2 separate prohibitions. Verse 4 bans the making. Verse 5 bans the worshipping. Making is one act. Worshipping is a different act. They're listed as separate items because they are separate things a person can do. And the golden cherubim on the ark violate verse 4, the making prohibition. No matter what you do with verse 5. Argue that nobody worships them? Fine, great. Nobody's claiming they did, but somebody made them. Somebody hammered them out of gold. Somebody sculpted likenesses of heavenly beings. Which is exactly what verse 4, not verse 5, verse 4 says not to do. And then there's this. And once you see it, it just sort of... It sticks to the inside of your skull and it doesn't come off. The cherubim are on the lid. The commandment against making images of heavenly things is on the tablets inside the box. They are in physical contact with each other. The violation is sitting on top of the rule. Literally, physically, materially. The golden images of heavenly beings are resting on the container that holds the prohibition against making golden images of heavenly beings. Touching it. You were taught to revere this object. You were taught the commandments inside it were sacred law. And nobody, not once, told you the box breaks its own rules. That's the third lie. And it's sitting right there in Exodus, 5 chapters apart, waiting for anyone to notice. Has anyone, pastor, teacher, Sunday school volunteer, seminary professor, youth group leader, anybody, ever actually said that to you in a room, out loud?
Has anyone ever taught the 10 Commandments and the Ark in the same session and gone, hey, you notice these two things contradict each other? Because I think for nearly every person watching this, the answer is no. Not once. Not ever. And that silence? I don't think it's an oversight. I think somebody a long time ago, and then again last week, and then again the week before that, decided you didn't need to see both pages at once. And that decision got handed down through so many generations of people who also didn't know that by now, the silence just feels like the way things are. Like it's always been that way. It hasn't. It's a choice somebody makes every single Sunday. Tell me in the comments, did anyone ever show you both? Because I already know what most of you are going to say. If you're feeling something right now, irritation, confusion, that particular low-frequency hum where something you always assumed was load-bearing just cracked underneath you. Pay attention to that. That feeling has a name. It's called thinking for yourself. And somewhere along the line, someone taught you that doing it was dangerous. But here's what gets me. The contradiction inside Exodus isn't even the worst part. Because the Ark wasn't just breaking its own commandment. It was breaking it with somebody else's design. And when you see whose design, when you see where those cherubim and those poles and those purification rituals and that entire blueprint actually came from, you'll understand why nobody who stood at the front of your church ever wanted you reading both pages at the same time. Lie number 4. And honestly, this is the one that changed it for me, permanently. You were taught that God revealed the Ark's design on Sinai, original, divine, straight from heaven. Here's what they didn't tell you. I'm going to describe a sacred object from the ancient world. I want you to listen to every detail. I'm going to give you 8 of them, one at a time. And I want you to try, actually try, to figure out which object I'm talking about. 1. A sacred object carried on long poles by priests. 2. Those priests have undergone ritual purification before they're allowed to get near it. 3. On top of it, winged figures, facing each other. 4. It's veiled, concealed from the public. Nobody outside the priesthood sees it. 5. It gives orders. People bring questions and receive answers from the space between the rings. 6. It leads military campaigns. When the army moves out, this object goes in front, and its presence means the god is physically there with the soldiers. 7. When it comes to rest, sacrifices are performed in front of it. 8. Only one priestly caste can handle it. Anybody else who touches it or gets too close, dead. You're seeing the Ark of the Covenant in your head right now. I know you are. Every single one of those 8 details maps perfectly onto what you learned about the Ark. That's the Egyptian sacred bark. Predates the earliest possible date for the Ark by centuries. And I'm not talking about some vague resemblance where, lots of ancient cultures had sacred boxes, so naturally there's some overlap. No. I mean point for point, function for function, restriction for restriction. If you laid the 2 descriptions next to each other, one from the Torah, one from Egyptian temple records,
You genuinely could not tell which was which unless somebody told you. The bark was carried on poles by a priestly class called the Wab, the pure ones, who'd performed purification rites before they could lay hands on it. The ark, carried on poles by Levites who'd been ritually purified. The bark had winged figures on top. The nous of the bark of Amun, recovered from Seti I's mortuary temple at Korna, shows them clearly, wings outstretched, facing each other. The ark, cherubim, wings spread, facing each other. The bark was veiled, hidden from public view during transport. The ark, Numbers 4 says the priests covered it with layers of cloth before anyone else could come near, and it keeps going. The bark gave oracles. It would physically tilt forward or backward while being carried, yes or no, answering questions from the priests. The ark gave oracles. Exodus 25:22. God speaks from between the cherubim. The bark went to war. It marched with Egyptian armies as the god's physical presence on the battlefield. Sound familiar? Numbers 10:35. The Philistine Wars. Every time Israel fought, the ark was there. The bark could only be maintained by one specific priestly caste. The ark could only be handled by Levites. And in both systems, Egyptian and Israelite, unauthorized contact meant death. Now, this isn't me connecting dots on a conspiracy board. A professor at the University of Washington named Scott Nogle, a guy who spent his entire career reading cuneiform and Egyptian hieratic, not somebody with a theological axe to grind, published a study in 2015 laying all of this out. His conclusion was straightforward. The ark's design, its function, its restrictions, its entire ritual framework is better explained as Egyptian in origin than by anything else anyone has ever proposed. Egypt. The civilization the Israelites had supposedly just walked away from. And I need you to actually feel what that means. Not just process it, feel it. Because the story you grew up hearing goes like this. God, on a mountain, in fire and smoke and earthquake, with the sky splitting open, God dictated these specifications personally to Moses. From heaven, the gold, the cherubim, the poles, the veil, the purification rules, all of it, original, divine, straight from the source. But every single one of those features already existed in Egypt for centuries before anybody climbed that mountain. The blueprints weren't revealed on Sinai. They were carried out of Egypt in the heads of people who'd spent their whole lives watching priests carry sacred bark on poles through temple courtyards. The thing that ended up in the Holy of Holies, the thing so sacred that nobody could touch it, nobody could look at it, the thing that would kill you for getting too close, was built from a design template that was already ancient when Moses was born, if Moses was born at all. You were told God designed it. The design was already old when Moses was born. That's line number 4. So the question you can't dodge anymore is this. How did two completely different versions of this object, one a wooden box Moses banged together himself, the other a golden Egyptian-style throne Bezalel constructed under divine commission, end up in the same Bible? And why didn't anybody tell you? The answer is the same answer a man in The Hague worked out in 1670, sitting by himself with the same 5 books of Moses that are on your shelf right now. Spinoza noticed something in Deuteronomy that should have been blindingly obvious to anyone who read the words without already having decided what they needed to say. The book refers to Moses in the third person. Moses went up the mountain. Not I went up the mountain. It describes locations Moses never set foot in. Deuteronomy 1 places him beyond the Jordan, which is how someone standing in Israel would describe the far side of the river, not how you describe the ground under your own feet. And then it narrates, and I mean this one should stop anyone cold. It narrates Moses' death and his burial. Chapter 34. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab. He buried him in the valley in the land of Moab. No one knows his burial place to this day. Moses did not write that sentence. Nobody writes their own obituary in past tense and then adds, to this day. Somebody else wrote Deuteronomy. Somebody living centuries after the events it describes. With their own sources, their own agenda, their own version of what the ark looked like. And somebody else entirely, different century, different traditions, different theology, wrote the Exodus version. 2 authors, 2 eras, 2 arcs. And Spinoza didn't need a shovel or a dig permit or a research grant to see it. He needed the 2 accounts on the same table at the same time. For that, for reading carefully, for treating the words like they meant what they said, his own people made sure nobody would speak to him again for the rest of his life. Not one person from his community was permitted to stand within 4 cubits of where he stood. Alright, stay with me here. Because what comes next is something I've been turning over for a while, and I still can't talk about it without my voice changing. I'm not angry at the text. I'm angry at what the story asks you to accept as good. Lie number 5. You were taught that the ark had real divine power, that people who touched it or got too close actually died, and that this proved the object was genuinely sacred. Here's what they left out. The stories about that power contradict each other so badly that even the body count is broken. 2 Samuel 6. David is bringing the ark to Jerusalem. Huge procession, music, dance, celebration. The whole nation is out there watching. The ark is on a brand new cart, oxen pulling it, and the oxen stumble. The cart lurches sideways. And a man named Uzzah, he's been walking right next to the ark. He's part of the family that's been guarding it for years. Reaches out his hand and steadies it. Reflex. Instinct. The holiest object in existence is about to slam into the dirt, and he catches it. God kills him, right there, in the road. Verse 7. The Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because of his irreverent act. Therefore, God struck him down, and he died there beside the ark of God. Irreverent act? That's what the text calls it? The man reached out to stop the most sacred object on the planet from crashing to the ground. That's his crime? That's the irreverence? A reflex. The same one you'd have, I'd have, any half-decent person on Earth would have. Just reach out and catch the thing. And heaven's response is dead. Instant. No hearing, no appeal.
Reach out and grab it.
I can see your intentions were good.
Reach out and grab
Dead in the road. Because he put his hand on the box. Think about that. Not as theology. Not through whatever filter they trained you to see these stories through. Just as a person. A man watches the most sacred thing his people have ever possessed tipping off a cart. And his body does what bodies do. He reaches. And the God who supposedly lives inside that box, the God described elsewhere in this same Bible as compassionate and gracious and slow to anger, that God kills him for it, on the spot, for the reflex of trying to help. Now, I can already hear it. The rules were clear. Levites carried on poles. David shouldn't have used a cart. The whole operation was wrong from the beginning. Fine. Sure. Let's grant that. Whose fault is the wrong operation? Uzzah didn't organize the procession. David organized it. David decided how the ark would travel. David chose the cart. David set the whole thing up. And the person who dies for it isn't the king who made the bad call. It's the man walking beside the box who instinctively tried to keep it from hitting the ground. The person with the least authority absorbs the total punishment. The person with the most authority gets a scare and a lesson, and goes on to become the greatest king in Israelite history. If that's what divine justice looks like, I don't know what the word justice is doing anywhere near that sentence. And then it gets worse. Because there's a body count problem connected to this object that almost nobody has ever heard about. Earlier in the story, 1 Samuel 6:19, the Philistines had captured the ark in battle, gotten hammered by plague for having it, and finally sent it back to the Israelites on a cart. It rolls into a small town called Beth Shemesh, and some of the townspeople, Israelites by the way, the good guys, the ones the ark is coming home to, look inside it. God kills them. How many? And this, right here, this question, should make every "the Bible is inerrant" claim go extremely quiet. Because the standard Hebrew text says God struck down 50,070 men. 50,070. For looking inside a box in a small farming town in the foothills south of Jerusalem. A town that couldn't have held 50,000 people if you stacked them on top of each other. Other ancient copies of the same passage, some of them older than the version your translation is based on, say 70. Just 70. Still horrifying. Still a mass killing for the act of curiosity. But at least it's a number that could physically happen in the real world. So, 70 or 50,070? Nobody knows. The manuscripts don't agree. Either a scribe's hand slipped and inflated the death toll by a factor of roughly 700, or somebody later in the chain deliberately pumped the number to make the ark seem more terrifying than it already was. Either way, here's what you're left with. The Bible cannot tell you how many people God killed for looking inside the ark. The body count is corrupted at the source. And in 2.5 millennia of scribes hand-copying this passage, generation after generation, nobody fixed it. The most sacred object in the entire religion, and the record of what it supposedly did to people, can't even get the number of dead right. A man dies for trying to save it from falling. 70, or 50,070, die for looking inside it. And the manuscripts can't agree on how many bodies dropped. You were taught the ark's power was real, that the death toll proved it was sacred. But the death toll itself is broken. The proof doesn't work. That's lie number 5, which, when you step back from it, is exactly the lesson of the Uzzah story. Isn't it? Don't touch. Don't look. Don't reach out. Don't get close. And if you felt, from the very first time you heard that story, whether you were 8 years old, or 18, or 30, sitting in the back row trying not to make eye contact, that something about it was deeply wrong. That a God who kills a man for catching a falling box is not good, is not just, is not something you want at the center of your life. You were right the whole time. You were right. And nobody in your world ever gave you permission to say so. 5 down. And honestly, if I just stopped here, if I said, the exterior descriptions don't match, the contents don't match, the lid violates its own commandment, the design was lifted from Egypt, and the proof of its power falls apart under its own weight, that would fill a whole video by itself. That would be enough to make most people close the book and sit in silence for a while. But there's a 6th one, and it's the one that, once you see it, makes everything else suddenly make a terrible kind of sense. Because once you understand this, you'll know why the contradictions were never cleaned up, why nobody reconciled the 2 designs, or fixed the body count, or addressed the Egyptian parallels, why all of it was just left there, in the text. Showing. Lie number 6. You were taught that the ark's disappearance is one of the great mysteries of the Bible, maybe of human history, that it's hidden somewhere, that it might be found, that its absence is significant and dramatic and unexplained. Here's the truth. The Bible doesn't treat it as a mystery at all. The Bible doesn't even seem to notice it's gone. The most sacred object your religion ever claimed to possess disappears. And the Bible doesn't care. Not disappears mysteriously. Not disappears in a dramatic scene with weeping priests and angelic intervention and trumpets. I mean, it just stops being mentioned, drops out of the text, like a character the writers forgot about halfway through the series. And you'd think, if the ark was real, if it mattered as much as they told you it did, that the moment it vanished would be one of the most documented events in the entire Bible. But here's what actually happens. 2 Kings 25. The Babylonians breached the walls of Jerusalem. They're tearing Solomon's temple apart, stone by stone. And the author, you can read this yourself tonight, goes into obsessive, almost compulsive inventory of what the invaders hauled off. Verse 13, the bronze pillars, the bronze stands, the bronze seat, that enormous basin in the temple courtyard. Verse 14, the pots, the shovels, the wick trimmers, the dishes for incense. Verse 15, the censers, the sprinkling bowls, everything made of pure gold, everything made of silver, the captain of the guard took away. This author cares about inventory deeply. Bronze shovels, on the list. Wick trimmers, the little tools they used for trimming the wicks on oil lamps, on the list. Recorded for posterity. Wick trimmers made the cut, and the Ark of the Covenant, the golden box with the mercy seat, the tablets of the law, the object that was supposed to be sitting in the center of the room. These Babylonians are currently smashing to rubble. Doesn't make the list. Not there. Not mentioned. Not stolen. Not destroyed. Not hidden. Not smuggled. Not mourned. Not accounted for in any way. The most sacred object in the religion. The thing that was supposed to be right there, dead center of the Holy of Holies. And when the temple comes down, and the conquerors are cataloging every piece of bronze and silver they're carting off to Babylon, the Ark gets nothing. Not a sentence. Not a clause. The author who noted the wick trimmers did not note the Ark of God. He either didn't know where it was, didn't think it mattered, or, and this is the possibility that should make your stomach drop,
Take 3,
it
take 4.
wasn't there, hadn't been there, maybe for a long time. And then there's the verse that should end every single conversation anybody's ever had about searching for the Ark. Jeremiah 3:16. The prophet speaking what he says are the words of God himself. In those days, when your numbers have increased greatly in the land, people will no longer say, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. It will never enter their minds or be remembered. It will not be missed, nor will another one be made. It will not be missed. Let that actually register. A prophet, speaking for God, in God's name, with God's authority, says the most sacred object the religion ever possessed is going to be forgotten, won't cross anybody's mind, won't be mourned, won't be rebuilt, and nobody should bother looking for it. Think about what that does to every Netflix documentary, every archaeological expedition, every History Channel special with the night vision cameras and the dramatic music, every self-appointed Ark hunter with a theory about a cave in Ethiopia, or a tunnel under the Temple Mount, or some government warehouse in Washington. The Bible, the book these people claim to build their lives on, says, stop. It's done. Let it go. You won't even miss it. The prophet tells you. God tells you. And the entire industry that keeps the search alive, the books, the shows, the conferences, the donation-funded expeditions, every bit of it depends on you not reading Jeremiah 3:16. Depends on you never finding out that the Bible itself closed this case centuries ago, stamped it, filed it, said, don't bother. You were taught the disappearance was a mystery. The Bible says it's not. That's lie number 6. The most sacred object the religion ever claimed. 2 descriptions of the outside that don't match. 2 inventories of the inside that don't match. A lid that violates the commandment it sits on top of. A blueprint borrowed from the empire the Israelites just fled. A God who kills a man for catching it when it falls. A body count so mangled the manuscripts can't agree on the number. And then, silence. The thing just vanishes. The Bible makes a list of every wick trimmer the Babylonians stole, and doesn't mention the Ark. And a prophet, speaking in the name of God, says, forget it, you won't miss it. Nobody will. I want to stop for a second. Not to recap. You tracked all of that. But because something built up over the last 20-odd minutes that I think matters more than any individual point I made. You walked into this with an image in your head. Golden box. Winged angels. Power. Mystery. the sacred object at the center of the faith. And what you actually found? When you opened the pages, both pages, at the same time, which is the one thing nobody standing at the front of a room ever asks you to do, isn't a mystery. It's a patchwork,
stitched together across centuries by people who never met each other, never compared notes,
never agreed on what this thing looked like, or what was inside it, or what it could do, or who built it, or what happened to it. The stitches have been visible this entire time. The only reason you never noticed is that somebody, a long time ago, and then again recently, and then again the week before that, told you not to look too closely. And you listened. Because somewhere in your life, you absorbed the idea that looking closely at this book was the same as doubting it. And doubting it was the same as sinning. And sinning near this particular object could get you killed. And underneath it all, underneath the gold and the wings and the power and the stories about people dying for getting too close, there's one last thing, the seventh lie. And honestly, it might be the only one that actually matters when everything else fades. You were taught that the Ark of the Covenant was the most sacred object in the history of your religion, that the name itself carried weight, something holy, something set apart. But the Hebrew word the Bible uses for the Ark, Aron, look it up tonight, takes 10 seconds. Aron does not mean sacred vessel, doesn't mean throne of God, doesn't mean holy receptacle or divine container or anything with weight or grandeur. It means box, chest, container. The same word shows up in Genesis 50 for the coffin they laid Joseph's embalmed body in after he died in Egypt. Same word in 2 Kings 12 for a money chest in the temple. Literally a donation box with a slot in the top where people dropped coins. Any box, any chest, any ordinary thing you'd store stuff in. The most sacred object in the history of monotheism. The thing in the center of the room, so holy that touching it killed a man, and looking inside it killed a town.
And in the original language, in the actual Hebrew,
it doesn't even have a sacred name. It's Aron, a box. That's what it's always been, as far as the language is concerned. A box that different people in different centuries kept telling bigger stories about. Until the box was gold. Until the box had angels. Until the box could kill you. Until the box was God Himself, sitting between the wings. But the word never changed. Through every layer of legend, and every rewrite, and every new author adding gold, or blood, or wings, the word underneath all of it stayed exactly the same.
Dumbass!
Box. The whole time.
Stupid!
You were taught the name meant something sacred. It doesn't. It means box. That's the seventh lie. A box nobody can agree on how to build. A box nobody can agree on what's inside. A box whose lid breaks the commandment it carries. A box whose blueprints were old before Moses was born. A box whose God killed a man for catching it. A box the Bible can't be bothered to track when it disappears. A box that a prophet says, in God's name, nobody will even remember. Spinoza saw this. 1670. Alone. A rented room in The Hague. The same text that's been on your shelf your whole life. He didn't have a dig site. Didn't have a department. Didn't have a team. He had the 5 books of Moses, and the willingness to read them as though the words actually meant what they said, without first deciding what they were required to mean. And he saw exactly what you just saw. The text contradicts itself about the thing at its own center. The words on the page don't agree with each other. The document isn't a blueprint handed down from heaven. It's layers. Tradition stacked on top of tradition. Century piled onto century. Until a box became a throne. And a throne became a weapon. And a weapon became a mystery. And the mystery became so sacred that questioning it felt like sin. He saw through every layer. And the difference between him and you is this. Tomorrow morning, you can talk about what you just heard, out loud, to anyone you want. He couldn't. For the rest of his life, nobody from his community was permitted to stand within 4 cubits of him. For reading carefully, for putting both pages on the table. Those 7 lies have been on your shelf the whole time. In the book you were told was perfect, breathed by God, without error. The difference between this morning and right now isn't that you learned something new. It's that you finally opened both pages at once. And there's no version of tomorrow where you only remember one of them. Of these 7, the 2 designs that can't both be real, the inventory that contradicts itself, the commandment the lid violates, the Egyptian blueprint, the power that falls apart under its own evidence, the disappearance nobody bothered to explain, and the name that just means box. Which one had you never heard before? Which one was sitting there in your Bible this whole time without a single person pointing at it? Tell me in the comments, because I'm fairly sure for most of you, it's not just one.
God damn it.
Hit the like, hit the hype button when it shows up on your screen. That's the single biggest thing you can do to push this in front of somebody who's still being told the box was designed by God on a mountaintop. And if there's someone in your life who needs to hear this, a parent, a friend, somebody you haven't figured out how to have this conversation with yet, send it. Not to start a fight, just to share it. Spinoza couldn't send it to anyone. He didn't have that option. You do.
Yeah, fucking goddamn Christ. A fucking Christ. Jesus fucking Christ.
Hey everybody, I was just made aware of a video that was posted yesterday by a content creator named Brandon McGuire, who runs a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers called Daily Dose of Wisdom. Brandon didn't tag me in the video, but here's the video. It's entitled Popular Bible Scholar Misleads Thousands, Example Provided. Thought I would take a look and respond to what Brandon has to say.
The Bible doesn't endorse abortion. A lot of people think the opposite is true, that the Bible condemns abortion. But if this is the only place where it seems to actually directly mention something about abortion, and then even then it's probably not even about abortion, where does this opposite idea come from, that the Bible does condemn abortion?
Actually, good question. Most of the time, folks who argue that the Bible condemns abortion, they're going to appeal to a handful of passages that suggest God has knowledge of and concern for gestation. And so you see this in, for instance, Jeremiah 1:5, where Jeremiah says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you and consecrated you a prophet to the nations." And
I formed you in the womb. I think that's important to note. You were in the womb. Jeremiah was in the womb. The person Jeremiah existed in the womb.
Well, I think it's more important to acknowledge that all this is being said about Jeremiah prior to his conception. And that's why I emphasize before in that translation. Because it's saying that God knew Jeremiah prior to his conception. And this is a fact about this passage that just
You're not gonna win!
miles over the heads of everybody who thinks they have the definitive grasp on what the Hebrew Bible is talking about. And they just don't. Because if God's foreknowledge about Jeremiah prior to his conception means that Jeremiah was a moral and a legal person prior to his conception, then it means that all people who will ever be born already have full moral and legal personhood. And you are not ready for the implications of that argument, because that would mean that if a woman was, according to God's foreknowledge, supposed to get pregnant and give birth as the result of rape, that it would therefore be murder to prevent that rape. Or it would constitute murder to stop two 12-year-olds from engaging in premarital sex if God knew that the girl was supposed to conceive and get pregnant and bear a child that God already knew, therefore granting that child full legal and moral personhood before their conception. What's going on in Jeremiah 1:5 is Jeremiah is boasting about how his consecration and calling as a prophet even precedes his gestation. Because we see that, as I've noted in other videos, in Mesopotamian, in Egyptian, and in other biblical writings, that prophets and kings will say, I was called by God or ordained by God from the womb. And Jeremiah says, I'm going to do you one better. God knew me before I was formed in the womb, before my conception. That's what's going on in Jeremiah. And no matter how many times I point this out, it again just scorches by, miles over the heads of everyone who imagines that they know what they're talking about.
Argument is that, well, Jeremiah was obviously a person. Jeremiah was a human being prior to being born. Therefore, human life begins at conception. You also have in the Psalms, you have a passage about how God knit me together in my mother's womb. You have the story of John the Baptist, the fetal John the Baptist leaping for joy in Elizabeth's womb upon hearing the voice of Mary, mother of Jesus. Those are the three most popular passages that get appealed to suggest that a human being begins at conception. And the idea is murder is the killing of an innocent human. Human lives begin at conception, therefore abortion is murder, and therefore abortion is wrong. And what this neglects to take account of is the fact that when we look at legal codes and legislation and stuff like that, we tend to assume that if there are principles anywhere, that they apply universally, and that everything fits perfectly into a perfectly systematic whole. And so the idea must be that, if over here we treat a fetus as somebody who can leap for joy or something like that, well then we could never, obviously, treat a fetus in another part of the text as not a fully legal and moral person.
Well, we would need a really good reason to not treat them as a full legal and moral person if a precedent has been clearly set. So let's see if you can give us a case for why they aren't.
But what we see throughout the Hebrew Bible is that a fetus was not considered a full legal and moral person. It was considered more property. And the most explicit example of that is in the Covenant Code, Exodus 21, verses 22 through 25, where we have this peculiar bit of legislation where it says if two men are fighting and they hit a woman and a pregnant woman, and there are two outcomes that are addressed in this legislation. If the injury causes her to miscarry, then there's a fine that is imposed by the husband, and then there are arbitrators that are there to ensure that it is exorbitant. If the injury results in permanent injury to the woman or her death, then it is talionic justice, which is life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. In other words, if this injury causes the woman to die, then it's the death penalty for the perpetrator.
See? If a pregnant woman is struck and miscarries, the only penalty is a fine. That proves the fetus wasn't a person. That proves the fetus is treated like property. But there's a very big problem with this.
No, there's not.
We're going to show it all in this video.
No, you're not.
We're going to analyze this carefully.
No, you're not.
What is Exodus 21 actually describing? Shout out to Logos Bible Software for helping to bring clarity to this question. For me, can someone please send the link in the description, which is logos.com/DDOW to Dan McClellan. Because anyone who clicks that link gets 60 days totally free to explore this software. I would love for him to be able to do so, because Logos software makes it so much easier to analyze that beloved data and to get to the bottom of these issues. Can someone please hook up Mr. McClellan?
So, three things here. One, it sounds like this video is just an excuse for Brandon to put on display how to use logos to understand the Bible better so he can rack up some ad revenue. And what he's going to demonstrate is that he clearly doesn't know the first thing about Hebrew, but also doesn't really know how to effectively use logos. Second thing, I don't need a copy of logos. I wrote a dozen entries for their Lexham Bible Dictionary over 15 years ago, and was given a free copy when I lived in Bellingham, Washington, which is where Logos is headquartered, and I was a graduate student at Trinity Western University. So I have had logos for over 15 years, and I actually prefer Accordance Bible software, which I was also given while I was a student at Trinity Western University, because I was a research assistant for Marty Abegg and tagged a bunch of Scroll manuscripts for Accordance to incorporate into their Bible software. So I have used both for over 15 years, and I think Accordance does a much better job.
That's a very bad translation. I'm going to show why right now.
Brandon is not remotely qualified enough to assess quality in Bible translation, as we're going to see.
If you go to, for example, the ESV or the KJV, you can start to see the way that this is translated differently. And really, the ESV is a more literal translation. Her children come out. But don't take my word for it. Let's actually look at this word right here, children. What is that word, children? What is that word, children, talking about? Let me pull it up right here for you. Let me give you the actual Hebrew right here. Pronounced this way. Oops, sorry, here. Yeled, okay? Yeled. Now, this is the same word for children outside of the womb, and that's really important because in Dan's translation, that's just kind of glossed over.
So a few things here. One, nothing has been glossed over. Brandon just doesn't even begin to know what he's talking about. And Brandon has glossed over something quite important. Why is the word for children in the plural in this passage? Brandon is talking about a single pregnant woman. And it says, her children come out. Why is that plural? Does this law only apply if a woman is carrying twins or triplets? Does this mean all of the contents of the womb? Is it a plural of generalization? Is it a plural of abstract, referring to the pregnancy? Why is it plural?
Suck my motherfucking dick.
Fluid into the common era, the Old Testament materials, is not solid. It's not
is definitely borrowing from Josephus.
I was going to say,
check out my or your video with Steve Mason on that. He really makes the case. He really just makes it so obvious. How he's constantly mentioning like places that are mentioned in Josephus, with conjunction with characters that are mentioned in Josephus, the sequence of events lining up, all that stuff.
Yeah. John is post 70. 2 Peter, the pastoral letters seem to be post 70. If you go with the consensus argument, look, you can get a little. Listen, I'm going to throw a little bit of curveball. I was going to say, like, there are some scholars who
think the whole thing is after 70.
Everything's after 70.
You know what's crazy about that? That makes, if that's true, I'm not saying that they're right. I'm not going to sit here and say who's right or wrong. But if they're right, if Nina and Jack Bull and them are right, that this is all post-70, Christianity all of a sudden makes way more sense.
Because
it becomes a replacement of Judaism at that point. Judaism's gone. I'm talking about Temple Judaism. Now we need something different. Well, let's chill out on the laws. Let's do something. It makes more sense from a cultural point of view why Christianity would start after 70.
Yeah, I'll grab the book just to show her some love. If you're interested in checking out her book, she ultimately argues that in a category of epistolary fictions, she compares the letters of Paul to other epistolary fictions, and she's convinced
it looks like second sophistic Greek, which is Greek that you would find like Lucian's Greek in the 2nd century AD.
It's very interesting.
And she's a Pauline scholar. It's not like she's some random, what do you call, what's his name, Graham Hancock, just some random person who doesn't study this stuff, just wrote a book. No, this is peer-reviewed through Oxford, and not only that, she's not just some random New Testament scholar. She's a Pauline, professor of Pauline.
Emeritus too.
So we're talking about someone who actually knows what she's talking about. We should listen to this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, very awesome friend of ours too. Stefan, last one says how many of the sources cited in Against Appian actually were real and not made up sources invented by the Roman imperial cult. I've never investigated that.
I think Against Appian is it's Josephus, but I think is that the one? Oh no, that's not the one. I'm thinking of another one. There was one that wasn't actually written by Josephus. This one is legitimate. But yeah, I don't know exactly what you mean by that. But that's like it's a little above my pay grade, I guess. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
Thank you so much.
All right, next one is Salty Crab Guy, I believe.
Yeah. It says why no pushback on Reza on myth vision? Good question. So I interviewed Reza Aslan, and I think that's how you pronounce it. Reza Aslan, who actually hypothesized that Jesus was a zealot. And in this conversation, he pretty much sees mythicism as ridiculous, and he makes that comment on the channel. For two reasons. When I go into these interviews with some of these scholars, I have a very strict time limit of 90 minutes. The last thing I cared to do in this episode was get bogged down on a mythicism question when I'm literally trying to extract the ideas and popularize them, which, by the way, the video did really good, Neil. I don't know if you noticed. It had like 26,000 views in a day or something, which is really good. I think it was something like that. And the goal was to get as many people acquainted with a radical insurgent type Jesus, a militant Jesus. And if we get stopped on pressing on mythicism in that episode, we'll get nowhere. I really would love to see that spark some conversation and debate between the actual people who hold the mythicism and Reza, meaning we could get a debate happening maybe with Richard Carrier and him, if he would do it. But I don't bog myself down on it. I'm not an apologist for mythicism. I'm not an apologist for historicism. I don't care. If the scholar thinks it's ridiculous, I let the scholar say what they want. We move forward. My goal was not to dwell on mythicism in that.
I seem to have fucked up my life pretty good here. So
she said fuck.